Welcome to Hannity. Breaking tonight. It is impeachment eve. The circus is coming to town, and we are just now hours away from the corrupt, compromised, coward, and congenital liar Adam Schiff show on Capitol Hill, brought to you by him and his fellow raging psychotic Democrats and their top allies in the media mob. First, know this. This is important. Everything you're going to see in the next 2 weeks is rigged. This is a phony show trial. There is zero due process, none. It is yet another fraudulent hoax, conspiracy theory. It is another witch hunt. It is wrought with rampant, putrid hypocrisy, a repulsive double standard. By the way, it's all bad for the country, but this is what your Democratic Socialist Party has become. This is who they are. This is what defines them, frankly, perfectly. Now, remember, tomorrow there's not one single thing the Democrats have done. Not one. The past 3 years, not a single thing they have done except to try to hurt Donald Trump and we, the people that support him, that shop at Walmart proudly and believe in God. They have not lifted one finger for a better economy, to create any jobs or improve the lives of you, we, the American people. They have done absolutely nothing to make this country safe and secure. Instead, they have spent the last 34 months slander, smears, besmirchment of the president, with one coordinated political hit job after another. You know, the routine, Russia, 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 Stormy, Stormy, S-hole, S-hole, impeach, impeach, now Ukraine, Ukraine. Same people, same liars, same conspiracy theorists. The left, frankly, they have never accepted the results of the 2016 election. They thought Trump was going down in flames. We've shown you the tape. They were laughing, they were mocking, they were ridiculing. They never saw this coming. They were blindsided because, in all reality, Democrats and their willing accomplices in the mob and the media, they live in this one bubble. They have one agenda, one set of opinions. You got the Democrats, the mob, joined together in what is a sick, ugly, degenerate, left-wing, socialist, unholy alliance. And remember this, they think they're smarter than you are, than we are, we, the American people. They think they know better than us. They have utter contempt, and they show it, comes out in a lot of ways, for us that are smelly Walmart shoppers. This is not just about President Trump. Understand this. This is a serious part. They hate everything and everyone he is representing. They hate the crowds that show up in massive numbers to support him. They refer to us not only as smelly Walmart people, irredeemable deplorables, angry, bitter Americans that cling to God, our Second Amendment, our Bibles, and religion. Guilty as charged. And by the way, for years, they just believed the Mueller report was their holy grail. They thought his findings would undo the results of the election they never thought they'd lose. They believed Mueller had them. They were wrong. No collusion, no conspiracy, no obstruction. So now they're on to plan B, C, and D, and they are out for blood. Make no mistake about it, the next 357 days, it is perfectly obvious. Now, you got to understand, to be a Democrat or part of the media mob, you actually have to be willing to engage in what is only a shocking level of raw hypocrisy that defies all interference of logic, intellect, reason, and common sense. In other words, to be a Democrat or in the media mob, you have to believe that Russia collusion is such a national crisis that you're going to spend 2.5 years investigating a hoax about Trump and Russia. But at the same time, you have to completely ignore Hillary Clinton's bought and paid for dirty Russian dossier. That's how bitterly sick, twisted, and partisan and hypocritical you need to be. Now, you have to obsess about phantom obstruction of justice charges in the Mueller report, but then totally ignore subpoenaed emails that were destroyed, deleted with bleach bit and smashed with hammers, with devices. You have to spend years obsessing about the horrors of foreign election interference, but then just look the other way, like it doesn't happen. When a DNC operative, we now know, actually colluded with the government of Ukraine in order to smear Trump and Manafort, all while bolstering the campaign of Hillary Clinton in 2016. All of this happened. To be a Democrat, to be a member of the media mob, You have to demand fairness in elections, but then ignore how Democratic primary was actually rigged against Bernie Sanders. You have to drag Justice Kavanaugh, his wife, and young kids through the mud with nothing but baseless accusations pushed by a bunch of I-believers that don't believe in due process, that don't believe in the presumption of innocence. But then, on the other hand, you have to ignore what are serious rape, sexual assault allegations against the Lieutenant Governor of Virginia. Yeah, in that case, there were no I-believers. Now, to be one of these members of the mob of the Democratic Party, you have to call every Republican running for office racist, sexist, misogynist, homophobic, xenophobic, blah, blah, blah. But you're going to let Ralph KKK Northam off the hook. And by the way, I guess now if you're a Democrat, you also have to accept, well, first we'll deliver the baby, we'll make the baby comfortable, then we'll let the mother decide if the baby lives or dies. And you have to believe in open borders. And you have to believe that it's a manufactured crisis, 90% of the heroin coming across our southern border. You have to be willing to organize a women's march for so-called equal rights and then appoint an anti-Semitic bigot who supports Sharia law to lead that movement. And then say with a straight face you actually care about women's rights. Now, to believe in this repulsive, what is really an elitist, holier-than-thou mob, you have to proclaim that the identity of the brave, fake, phony non-whistleblower, whistleblower, hearsay whistleblower, that person must be hidden. That's the hearsay complaint about the Ukraine call. Hey, that person needs to be respected. But then you have to be totally okay when CBS fires a news producer for helping blow the whistle on a story that ABC News spiked in 2015 about a convicted pedophile, Jeffrey Epstein. Right, Humpty Dumpty? Right, Jeff Zucker? And tonight we're witnessing perhaps the most shameless hypocrisy of all, and the examples of it, because you've got this corrupt, compromised coward for 3 years, nothing but a congenital liar. And he's, by the way, lied in this case already. Adam Schiff is going to kick off this public witch trial into whether or not President Trump engaged in a quid pro quo. Oh, wait a minute. We're going to change that, X that out. Oh, now we'll call it extortion with the country of Ukraine. And, of course, he's alleging the president traded U.S. aid in exchange for Ukraine's cooperation in election interference and an investigation. The interesting thing is, not one time, do you know, in that call, not once, in that phone call, not a single time did they ever bring up the issue of aid. Not once. And then they ignore completely, again, only a Democrat can do this, only the mob can do this, a corrupt investigation into Vice President Joe Biden and his son Hunter. Democrats want you to forget three things. One, the United States has a cooperation agreement with Ukraine to investigate crimes. Election interference is a crime. Using taxpayer dollars, quid pro quo Joe, you get the billion, you fire the prosecutor investigating my son. That probably is illegal, too. And the president, you're also forgetting this. Number two, he has a sworn duty to uphold the laws of the land. Number three, there is clear evidence of potential crimes. Now, when it comes to interference, we know Politico detailed how the country of Ukraine was actively working to elect Hillary Clinton, coordinating with a DNC operative who met with them at the Ukrainian embassy in Washington. And when, by the way, also a Ukraine court confirmed all this. But when it comes to creepy, crazy Joe 30330, we actually have video evidence of a real quid pro quo and him bragging about it. Just so happens to be with the country of Ukraine. Joe, yes, threatened to withhold $1 billion if a Ukrainian prosecutor wasn't fired within 6 hours. Now, ask yourself this question tonight. Why would a sitting vice president of the United States care about some dopey prosecutor in Ukraine? Well, I think we know the answer. Probably had something to do with the fact that Vice President Biden, remember, he was told by the New York Times and others that this prosecutor was investigating his son, Hunter. He's not a kid. He's like 49 years old. Now, zero experience Hunter Biden. He was getting paid millions and millions of dollars from a Ukrainian and gas or energy giant, Burisma Holdings. At the same time, his father was in charge of U.S.-Ukrainian relations for the Obama administration. Now, Hunter must have offered great experience in Ukraine. Nope. Energy? Nope. Oil? None. gas, none. A quid pro quo Joe wants you to believe there's zero evidence of any potential wrongdoing. What you're about to see is a lie. Take a look.
Look, I think that's every single solitary, serious investigator, including your network and others, have looked at this, have said there's absolutely zero basis to the accusation that I acted any way inappropriately or that my son did. This is all about Trump trying to create a diversion.
What Joe Biden said right there is a lie. He's the only corrupt player that we know of with Ukraine. So he would prefer you don't believe his own bragging video evidence and don't believe that zero experience Hunter Biden's multi-million-dollar payday with Ukraine actually happened. Now, we've detailed, thanks to Greg Jarrett, that the Bidens, especially Joe, probably is in real legal trouble if we had equal application of our laws in this country and equal, well, justice under the law, because we have a law called the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, where it is illegal, Joe, for a U.S. person to coerce or influence a foreign nation into taking action, fire the prosecutor, that might financially benefit that person, his family, Hunter, or business. And then we have bribery laws where it is illegal to offer or promise anything of value, $1 billion, for a public official to influence an official act, fire the prosecutor. And by the way, giving, offering, promising anything of value to a public official in exchange for an official act is a violation of the gratuity statute. That's also a felony. And we have the Hobbs Act. A threat to a foreign official in order to obtain an official benefit affecting interstate foreign commerce would constitute something called extortion. Democrats tonight are hoping we, the American people, smelly Walmart Trump supporters, ignore what are inescapable truths about Biden corruption. Instead, what they want you to believe is that Donald Trump is guilty of the quid pro quo simply because of the opinions of people that share their hatred of Donald Trump, deep state bureaucrats, about a phone call and their biased interpretation of a call for which a transcript is now totally public for all to see. Their interpretation is dead wrong. There's never any mention of any financial anything in that phone call. And get this. We have a New York Post article written by Jonathan Tobin. He brings up a really good point. Quote, how can the House examine this matter without probing Trump's motivation for requesting Ukraine investigate the Bidens? But don't expect to see Hunter or Joe Biden testify. The cowardly, corrupt, compromised, congenital liar Schiff, he won't allow it. This is not a real investigation. This is a political circus. There's no due process. This is a show trial. They have pre-selected, pre-interviewed, if you will, the people that they want to trot out first, that they think will most make their case, because they have a predetermined outcome. And we know that Schiff has already pre-interviewed his favorite witnesses behind closed door and will now only allow his favorites to testify and cherry-pick the witnesses. In fact, this compromised congenital liar won't even allow the non-whistleblower to take the stand when he first said that he would take the stand.